Hey soldiers, Ron Paul is once again issuing a warning about government control via the economic system. Now, we've seen this in the past few years rear its ugly head, but there's some developments going on, especially when you consider central bank digital currencies that threaten the economic independence in general of Americans and people throughout the entire world. If these banks are able to institute these CBDCs, you're going to see a level of control over your life like we have never seen before.
We already are sensing, and the people are sensing, a loss of liberty right now for various reasons. And that, to me, is what's most vital and most crucial for me is that liberty. I think if we did what I'm talking about, it would be very, very bad. But to retain one thing, I talk about investments and all. What can I do to protect my investment? Should I buy gold, have land? You should try to do all those things. But the whole thing is the most important investment anybody can make, and where I spend most of my time, is trying to get people to understand what the principles of liberty are. Because I believe if you just cut everything off, get rid of the income tax, get rid of the Federal Reserve, have sound money, and get rid of most of the regulation and just let people go, people say, I'd do pretty well if I could just keep all that money I'm making.
Hey soldiers, there's a formula to build wealth that is more important now than any other time in the history of modern society. And part of the reason why it's so important is because our governments are becoming our economic adversaries. They're making it tougher and tougher for the middle class to exist, let alone be able to achieve financial independence and then maintain that. We are actually seeing our governments come at us as we the people all over the world and attack our ability to build wealth, not just for ourselves, but for generations of our family to come, and for those organizations that we care about as well. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, Ron Paul, he's always got his finger on the pulse. I followed Ron Paul for many, many decades, and Ron Paul is right. Building on the Bitcoin model, central banks are planning to produce their own digital currencies, removing any and all remaining privacy, granting total control over every transaction, even limiting what ordinary people are allowed to spend their money on. Now, if you want a preview of the predilection for governments and financial institutions to do just that, to determine what you should be spending your money on, let's travel down under to Australia. Good day, mate. And check out what the Australian banks are down there doing. Australian bank to scrap loans for new diesel and gasoline cars as country looks to increase EV, electric vehicle, uptake. While there will be no more loans for new combustion engine vehicles, including hybrids, so no more hybrids either, from 2025, so just a few years from now, they're going to stop it, or so they say. I think they won't, because they'll find out that this is not a sustainable solution. Bank Australia will continue to provide loans for used diesel and gasoline cars. So they're trying to destroy the internal combustion engine. The banks are trying to destroy the internal combustion engine market there by denying loans to people who want to purchase those cars. Now, here's the problem with that. If an industry dies, it should be allowed to do so organically because there is a better alternative on the market. Now, I'm not sure if an EV is a better alternative. It's definitely not on par with an ICE or internal combustion engine in terms of expense. Some of these batteries, the replacement batteries, are going for upwards of $20,000. In addition, the charging networks are not nearly as ubiquitous. And I think that is by design right now. I think that this is another element of control over sovereign individuals and inhibiting their ability to travel. Right now, you can get in your car, and I can travel from here. I'm in Maryland on the East Coast. I can travel from here all the way to California, and I can drive straight and refill at several stops along the way, no problem. It's not true with the EV charging network in America or in Australia. Australian government Okay, so we got the corporations and the government of Australia in on this. The Australian government said it is significantly behind the pack when it comes to electric vehicles. According to the International Energy Agency, electric vehicles sales hit 6 million in 2021. And I'm not sure if they're talking about in Australia or globally. I'm not sure about that. But fact remains, sure, these cars are nice right now. They have a different type of technology. But here's the other very interesting aspect of Australia's move away from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles. Now, this is the kind of stupid stuff governments will be allowed to run rampant with when and if they establish central bank digital currencies. 54% of Australia's electricity is generated using coal. Another 20% is generated using natural gas. So almost 3/4 of Australia's electrical power is derived from fossil fuels. Now, that means when you plug in your electrical vehicle, 75% of that charge is coming from fossil fuels. So this is the kind of shell game governments like to play. Somebody's getting paid, man. And look, I'm not hating on Elon Musk. I think he's doing wonderful things in terms of building different types of technologies. But just by virtue of the fact that Australia derives 3/4 of its electricity from fossil fuels, and they're trying to put the burden for this clean energy facade onto the backs of their citizens, just by virtue of that, kind of clues you into what the government would do in the event that a CBDC were established. And I know what you're saying. You're saying, well, the government isn't introducing this. No, but it's not standing up thus far and saying, wait a minute, Bank Australia, you guys have to loan people money as long as they qualify for legal things. They haven't outlawed internal combustion engines, have they? Okay. So if it's not outlawed, why can't you get a loan for it? Okay. And you can go to another bank, sure. But this is just a preview of what's to come. Now back to Ron Paul. For those who have never heard of them, central bank digital currencies are exactly what they sound like. Digitized versions of the pound, dollar, euro, whatever, issued by central banks. Like Bitcoin and other crypto, the CBDC would be entirely digital, thus furthering the ongoing war on cash. However, unlike crypto, it would not have any encryption preserving anonymity. In fact, it would be totally the reverse, potentially ending the very idea of financial privacy. And I know somebody's going to say, well, if you ain't doing nothing wrong, then you shouldn't be worried. That's anyone who says that doesn't understand liberty. I don't want the government or anyone else knowing exactly what I buy. Somebody on my Facebook page, I was talking about Reginald Lewis. He was one of those guys back in the late 80s, early 90s who was into the leveraged buyout, that whole game. And he made this huge transaction for Beatrice Foods. Okay, and I just put up, this is one of my financial heroes. This is what he did. And somebody commented saying that, well, what did he do with his money? How did he help society? And I said, I don't keep track of what people do with their money. That's immaterial to me. I don't have any expectations or obligations on anyone in terms of what they decide to do with money that they've earned. Not at all. So this would not be the case if we had a CBDC. Let's say you head down to Bass Pro and you want to buy some ammunition. Well, you'll probably end up on a watch list or two if you decide to do that with a CBDC. Right now, you can do it for cash and remain anonymous. And in this world, that's something you may want to do. They've even said, the FBI, years ago, the Department of Justice put out some things you need to worry about. Okay? If your neighbor's buying extra food, looks like they're a prepper, might be a little suspicious. Okay? So we're moving toward this Stasi-like society here in America, and a CBDC would enable that. Now, we've covered this on the channel before, but it bears repeating. By far, the most dangerous idea is that any future digital currency should be programmable. Yes, you heard that right, programmable. Meaning the people issuing the money would have the power to control how it's spent. That's not an interpretation. It's not a conspiracy theory, and it's not hyperbole. This came straight from Augustine Carstens, head of the International Settlement Bank, or Bank of International Settlements. That is the central bank of central banks. He spoke earlier this year and he said, I quote, "The key difference with a CBDC is that the central bank would have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability, and then have the technology to enforce that." Now, a couple of things. He just, his blatant statement is, look, we be able to dictate how you use it. And he also said that it was a central bank liability. There is a move to have the central bank of a nation be where the money is housed, okay? Not in these individual privately held banks. Saul Amrova talked about that when she was undergoing the nomination process to be Biden's comptroller of the currency. This was earlier in the year. She didn't make it, but as I always said, the fact that they put her up telegraphs what they want to move toward. Now, in conjunction with all of that, you also have the IRS that it's going to balloon. It's gotten some, fantastic funding from the Inflation Reduction Act. Speaking of the Inflation Reduction Act, they've started to pivot on that. And they're not calling it that anymore. There's a move afoot, a campaign underway to rename it and rebrand it. Oh, it's not supposed to reduce inflation. It never was. But now, since it's passed and Biden signed it, now they can be honest with you.
President Joe Biden signed a major bill into law to address climate change and health care challenges. But as the Inflation Reduction Act takes effect, what does it mean for you? WCNC Charlotte's Brianna Harper looks at climate impacts and making health expenses more affordable.
And President Biden scored another major victory with the passage of a landmark climate, health care, and tax bill in the House.
Congressional Democrats are racing to pass a climate and health care bill ahead of the August recess.
Okay, so we promised you earlier in this video that we were going to talk about that tried and true method to build wealth, okay? And it's something that people have done. It's more important than ever now, because what you have to do is you have to, create multiple streams of income, okay? You can literally not afford to be dependent on one stream of income. Or if you got two people that are in the house, breadwinners, two streams of income, her job and his job, that this is the 21st century, guys. We're well into it. And they're showing you what we're dealing with. The CBDC is coming down the pike. The IRS, they want to be the enforcement, the supersized, muscular enforcement debt collector. Okay, they've gone from a government agency to, hey man, they're arming themselves. This is Tony Soprano coming to pay you a visit.
I don't want to hear about the economy either. I don't want to hear it.
Okay, so you want to pay the taxes you owe. Okay, you don't want to mess around. But again, so far the rules are such that there are many ways that you can reduce your tax debt, totally legally. Now, I do want to say something about loopholes. One of the things that people like to do is they like to demonize tax advantages provided to you within the tax code by the IRS. The Congress signed off on it. The president, he signed it into law. These are not anything nefarious. These are ways that you can keep more of your money. Okay. So again, I just want to battle that back any opportunity I get. It's not a loophole. So what do? Well, you have to, like I said, go ahead and establish multiple streams of income. And then what you want to do, of course, you're going to pay the taxes you owe. But from those multiple streams of income, you're going to live and you're going to acquire assets. Some of those assets are going to need to be things that you never sell, that just continue to appreciate in value, because if you never sell, you never expose it to taxation in most cases. Again, real estate is going to be subject to local real estate taxes, okay, no matter what. I know some jurisdictions, if you're over a certain age, they stop taxing you, but that's if you are the owner-occupant, not if you're an investor. So there are going to be some taxes for that real estate investment. However, if you're renting that out, you can pass that on to the tenant. If you're getting paid dividends on a dividend paying stock, then If that's outside of a qualified plan, you are going to pay taxes on that, okay? But you can minimize that to the extent that you can by not selling assets, okay? And then you minimize your tax burden. So you establish multiple streams of income so you can live and so you can enjoy your life. One of those income streams, one or more, needs to be your own business, okay? Because W-2 income is taxed onerously. There are very few opportunities for you to save on taxes with a W-2 income, okay? So understand that. Never sell the assets. And then some of your money needs to be in vehicles that you've already paid the taxes on before putting the money away, okay? Roth IRA, cash value, permanent life insurance policy, okay? You really need to have these tools in your toolbox in order to deal with the fact that as the national debt grows, okay, and grows, as your share of it as a taxpayer grows commensurate with it, as the dollar continues to lose favor throughout the world, you can weather this storm and still maintain your course on the road to financial independence, all the while being able to reasonably expect to leave a legacy behind for the people and organizations you care about. Okay, soldiers, now what I want you to do is I want you to watch this video. It's about Jerome Powell and the no-win situation. This will give you some more information on what's going on with the dollar, where we're going, and what the government is going to expect of you in terms of giving them money, okay? And we're also going to talk, as we always do, about ways to mitigate those circumstances and do it in line with the tax code. Watch that video. Guys, I'll talk to you soon.